Bagheera's hunting. All that is told here happened some time before Mowgli was turned out of the Seoni wolf pack or revenged himself on Shere Khan the tiger. It was in the days when Baloo the brown bear was teaching him the law of the jungle. Sometimes Bagheera the black panther would come lounging through the jungle to see how his pet was getting on, and would purr with his head against a tree while Mowgli recited the day's lesson to Baloo. But he grew very tired of saying the same thing over 100 times. Baloo said to Bagheera one day when Mowgli had been cuffed and run off in a temper,
"A man-cub is a man-cub, and he must learn all the law of the jungle. I am now teaching him the master words of the jungle that shall protect him with the birds and the snake people, and all that hunt on 4 feet except his own pack. I will call Mowgli, and he shall say them if he will. Come, little brother!"
Mowgli slid down a tree trunk, very angry and indignant. But Baloo said to him,
"Tell Bagheera the master words of the jungle that I have taught thee this day."
"Master words for which people?"
"Say the words for the hunting people."
"We be of one blood, ye and I."
"Good. Now for the birds."
"We be of one blood, ye and I."
"Now for the snake people."
"We be of one blood, ye and I."
Mowgli kicked up his feet behind, clapped his hands together to applaud himself, and jumped onto Bagheera's back, where he sat sideways, drumming with his heels on the glossy skin and making the worst faces he could think of at Baloo, and shouting,
"Someday I shall have a tribe of my own and lead them to the branches all day long."
"What is this new folly, little dreamer of dreams?"
"Yes, and throw branches and dirt at old Baloo. They have promised me this. Aha!" Baloo's big paws scooped Mowgli off Bagheera's back, and as the boy lay between the big forepaws, he could see the bear was angry.
"Mowgli, thou hast been talking with the Bandalog, the monkey people."
"When Baloo hurt my head, I went away, and the grey apes came down from the trees and had pity on me, and they gave me nuts and pleasant things to eat, and they carried me in their arms up to the top of the trees and said I was their blood brother, except that I had no tail and should be their leader someday."
"They have no leader. They lie. They have always lied. I, Baloo, have taught thee all the law of the jungle for all the peoples of the jungle except the monkey folk who live in the trees. They have no law. They are outcasts. We do not notice them, even when they throw nuts and filth on our heads."
He had hardly spoken when a shower of nuts and twigs sputtered down through the branches, and they could hear coughings and howlings and angry jumpings high up in the air among the thin branches.
What Baloo had said about the monkeys was perfectly true. They followed Baloo and Bagheera and Mowgli through the jungle very quietly till it was time for the midday nap, and Mowgli, who was very much ashamed of himself, slept between the panther and the bear, resolving to have no more to do with the monkey people.
The next thing he remembered was feeling hands on his legs and arms, hard, strong little hands, and then a swash of branches in his face, and then he was staring down through the swaying boughs as Baloo woke the jungle with his deep cries, and Bagheera bounded up the trunk with every tooth bared. The Bandalog howled with triumph, and then they began their flight. And the flight of the monkey people through treeland is one of the things nobody can describe. They have their regular roads and crossroads, up hills and down hills, all laid out from 50 to 70 or 100 feet above ground, and by these they can travel even at night if necessary. 2 of the strongest monkeys caught Mowgli under the arms and swung off with him through the treetops, 20 feet at a bound. So bounding and crashing and whooping and yelling, the whole tribe of Bandalogs swept along the tree roads with Mowgli their prisoner.
Then he began to think. The first thing was to send back word to Baloo and Bagheera, for at the pace the monkeys were going, he knew his friends would be left far behind. It was useless to look down, for he could only see the top sides of the branches. So he stared upward and saw, far away in the blue, Chill the kite, balancing and wheeling as he kept watch over the jungle, waiting for things to die. Chill saw that the monkeys were carrying something and dropped a few 100 yards to find out whether their load was good to eat. He whistled with surprise when he saw Mowgli being dragged up to a treetop and heard him give the kite call for,
"We be of one blood, thou and I."
Mowgli shouted,
"Mark my trail. Tell Baloo of the Seoni pack and Bagheera of the Council Rock."
"In whose name, brother?"
"Mowgli the Frog. man cub, they call me. Mark my trade.
Chill nodded and rose up till he looked no bigger than a speck of dust, and there he hung, watching with his telescope eyes the swaying of the treetops as Mowgli's escort whirled along.
Meantime, Baloo and Bagheera were furious with rage and grief, and Baloo cried,
Oh, haste! Oh, haste! We may catch them yet. Oh, they may have dropped him already, being tired of carrying him. Who can trust the Bandalog? Put dead bats on my head. Give me black bones to eat, for I am the most miserable of bears. Oh, Mowgli, Mowgli, why did I not warn thee against the monkey folk instead of breaking thy head?
Bagheera said,
Unless and until they drop him from the branches in sport, or kill him out of idleness, I have no fear for the man-cub. He is wise and well taught, and above all, he has the eyes that make the jungle people afraid.
Baloo uncurled himself with a jerk and cried,
Fool that I am! Oh, fat, brown, root-digging fool that I am! It is true what Hathi, the wild elephant, says, to each his own fear. And they, the Bandalog, fear Kaa, the rock snake. He can climb as well as they can. He steals the young monkeys in the night. The whisper of his name makes their wicked tails cold. Let us go to Kaa.
They found him stretched out on a warm ledge in the afternoon sun, admiring his beautiful new coat.
Kaa was not a poison snake, but his strength lay in his hug, and when he had once lapped his huge coils round anybody, there was no more to be said. He greeted them.
Oh, Baloo, Bagheera, what dost thou do here?
We are hunting.
Give me permission to come with you. I came very near to falling on my last hunt, very near indeed, and the noise of my slipping, for my tail was not tight wrapped round the tree, waked the Bandalog, and they called me most evil names.
Footless yellow earthworm.
Have they ever called me that, Bagheera?
Something of that kind it was that they shouted to us last moon, but we never noticed them.
The Bandalog have shifted their grounds. When I came up into the sun today, I heard them whooping among the treetops.
It is the Bandalog that we follow now. The trouble is this, Kaa. Those nut stealers and pickers of palm leaves have stolen away our man-cub, and we know that of all the jungle people, they fear Kaa alone.
They fear me alone. They have good reason. Now, whither went they with the cub?
Hello! Look up, Baloo of the Seoni wolf pack! Baloo, Bagheera, I have seen Mowgli among the Bandalog. He bade me tell you. I watched. The Bandalog have taken him beyond the river to the monkey city, to the cold lair.
Bagheera said,
It is half a night's journey at full speed. We must go on the quick foot, Kaa and I.
Baloo made one effort to hurry, but had to sit down panting, and so they left him to come on later. Kaa said nothing, but strive as Bagheera might, the huge rock python held level with him.
By the broken lock that freed me, Kaa, thou art no slow goer.
I am hungry. Besides, they called me Speckled Frog.
Worm, earthworm, and yellow to boot.
All one, let us go on.
In the cold lairs, the monkey people were not thinking of Mowgli's friends at all. They had brought the boy to the lost city. Some king had built it long ago on a little hill. A great roofless palace crowned the hill, and the marble of the courtyards and the fountains was split and stained with red and green. The monkeys called the place their city and pretended to despise the jungle people because they lived in the forest. They would sit in circles on the hall of the king's council chamber and scratch for fleas and pretend to be men. Mowgli, who had been trained under the law of the jungle, did not like or understand this kind of life. Mowgli cried to them,
I wish to eat. I am a stranger in this part of the jungle. Bring me food or give me leave to hunt here.
20 or 30 monkeys bounded away to bring him nuts and wild pawpaws, but they fell to fighting on the road, and it was too much trouble to go back with what was left of the fruit. Mowgli was sore and angry as well as hungry, and he roamed through the empty city and felt that he had reached a very bad place indeed. No sooner had he walked to the city wall than the monkeys pulled him back, telling him that he didn't know how happy he was, and pinching him to make him grateful. He set his teeth and said nothing, but went with the shouting monkeys to a terrace above the red sandstone reservoirs that were half full of rainwater. There was a ruined summer house of white marble in the center of the terrace, built for queens dead 100 years ago. The domed roof had half fallen in and blocked up the underground passage from the palace by which the queens used to enter. But the walls were made of screens of marble tracery. Mowgli said to himself,
Now there is a cloud coming to cover that moon. If it were only a big enough cloud, I might try to run away in the darkness. But I'm tired.
That same cloud was being watched by two good friends in the ruined ditch below the city wall. For Bagheera and Kaa, knowing well how dangerous the monkey people were in large numbers, didn't wish to run any risks. Kaa whispered,
I will go to the west wall, Bagheera, and come down swiftly with the slope of the ground in my favor.
When that cloud covers the moon, I shall go to the terrace. They hold some sort of council there over the boy.
Good hunting, Bagheera.
And Kaa glided away to the west wall. The cloud hid the moon, and as Mowgli wondered what would come next, he heard Bagheera's light feet on the terrace. The Black Panther had raced up the slope almost without a sound, and was striking. He knew better than to waste time in biting, right and left among the monkeys, who were seated round Mowgli in circles 50 and 60 deep. There was a howl of fright and rage, and then as Bagheera tripped on the rolling, kicking bodies beneath them, a monkey shouted, There is only one here! Kill him! Kill! A scuffling mass of monkeys, biting, scratching, tearing, and pulling, closed over Bagheera, while 5 or 6 laid hold of Mowgli, dragged him up the wall of the summer house, and dropped him down through the hole of the broken dome, crying, Stay there! Till we have killed thy friends, and later we will play with thee, if the poison people leave thee alive. Mowgli quickly gave the snake's call.
We be of one blood, ye and I.
He could hear rustling and hissing in the rubbish all round him. The old summer house was alive with cobras, but they only whispered,
Stand still, little brother, for thy feet may do us harm.
Mowgli stood as quietly as he could, peering through the open work and listening to the furious din of the fight round the Black Panther. And he called aloud,
To the tank, Bagheera! Roll to the water tank! Roll and plunge! Get to the water!
Bagheera heard, and the cry that told him Mowgli was safe gave him new courage. He worked his way desperately, inch by inch, straight for the reservoirs, hitting in silence.
Then from the ruined wall nearest the jungle rose up the rumbling war shout of Baloo. The old bear had done his best, but he could not come before.
Bagheera, I am here. Oh, the stones slip under my feet. Wait my coming, oh most infamous Bandalog.
He panted up the terrace, only to disappear to the head in a wave of monkeys, but he threw himself squarely on his haunches and, spreading out his forepaws, hugged as many as he could hold, and then began to hit with a regular bat, 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 like the flipping strokes of a paddle wheel. A crash and a splash told Mowgli that Bagheera had fought his way to the tank where the monkeys could not follow. The panther lay gasping for breath, his head just out of water, while the monkey stood 3 deep on the red steps, dancing up and down with rage, ready to spring upon him from all sides if he came out to help Baloo. Kaa had only just worked his way over the west wall, landing with a wrench that dislodged a coping stone into the ditch. He came straight, quickly, and anxious to kill. His first stroke was delivered into the heart of the crowd round Baloo, and there was no need of a second. The monkeys scattered with cries of, Kaa! It's Kaa! They ran, stammering with terror, to the walls and the roofs of the houses. Mowgli, dancing in the summer house, put his eye to the screenwork and hooted, owl-fashion. Bagheera gasped.
Baloo, Kaa, get the man-cub out of that trap. I can do no more.
Kaa looked carefully till he found a discolored crack in the marble tracery showing a weak spot, made 2 or 3 light taps with his head to get the distance, and then, lifting up 6 feet of his body clear of the ground, sent home half a dozen full-power smashing blows, nose first. The screenwork broke and fell away in a cloud of dust and rubbish, and Mowgli leapt through the opening and flung himself between Baloo and Bagheera, an arm around each big neck.
Mowgli,
Oh, Baloo,
Mowgli,
Bagheera.
art thou hurt, little frog?
I am so hungry and not a little bruised, but oh, they've handled ye grievously, my brothers. Ye bleed.
It is nothing if thou art safe. But here is Kaa, to whom we owe the battle, and thou owest thy life.
So this is the manling. Very soft is his skin, and he is not so unlike the Bandalog. Have a care, manling, that I do not mistake thee for a monkey some twilight when I have newly changed my coat.
Then Kaa glided out into the center of the terrace and said,
The moon sets. Begins now the dance of the hunger of Kaa. Sit still and watch.
He turned twice or thrice in a big circle, weaving his head from right to left. Then he began making loops and figures of 8 with his body, and soft, oozy triangles that melted into squares and 5-sided figures, and coiled mounds, never resting, never hurrying, and never stopping his low, humming song. At last he said,
Bandalog, can ye stir foot or hand without my order? Speak.
Without thy order, we cannot stir foot or hand, O Kaa.
Good. Come all one pace closer to me.
The lines of the monkeys swayed forward helplessly, and Baloo and Bagheera took one stiff step forward with them.
Closer.
And they all moved again.
Bagheera whispered.
Mowgli, keep thy hand on my shoulder. Keep it there, or I must go back to Kaa.
It is only old Kaa making circles on the dust. Let us go.
And the 3 slipped off through a gap in the walls to the jungle. Mowgli, who didn't know anything of a python's powers of fascination, said,
But what was the meaning of it all? I saw no more than a big snake making foolish circles till the dark came, and his nose was all sore.
Mowgli, his nose was sore on thy account, as my ears and sides and paws and Baloo's neck and shoulders are bitten on thy account. All this, man-cub, came of thy playing with the Bandalog.
True, it is true. I am an evil man-cub, and my stomach is sad in me.
What says the law of the jungle, Baloo?
Baloo did not wish to bring Mowgli into any more trouble, but he could not tamper with the law, so he mumbled.
Sorrow never stays punishment. But remember, Bagheera, he is very little.
Bagheera gave him half a dozen love taps. From a panther's point of view, they would hardly have waked one of his own cubs. But for a 7-year-old boy, they amounted to as severe a beating as you could wish to avoid. When it was all over, Mowgli sneezed and picked himself up without a word. Then Bagheera said,
Now jump on my back, little brother, and we will go home.